was almost like looking into hell, because there were, steam plumes everywhere. There were chunks of ice the size of houses laying there melting from where the glaciers had blown up.
A wave of small earthquakes shaking Mount St. Helens in recent days, and experts say more than 100 quakes have actually occurred.
On the morning of May 18th, 2025, the United States paused to remember a cataclysm that forever scarred the Pacific Northwest and changed our understanding of the natural world. 4.5 decades before, Mount St. Helens erupted with a force that humbled scientists and devastated communities, killing 57 people and obliterating more than 200 square miles of once pristine forest. Yet, as the ash settled and a nation mourned, that plume of destruction became fertile ground for discovery, a laboratory born of disaster. 45 years on, the shadow of Mount St. Helens still looms large, both physically and in the scientific imagination. The volcano, once a textbook illustration of dormant grandeur, is now an ever-active stratovolcano. Its slopes, marked by scars and new green growth, teem with secrets lying beneath layers of tephra. Every year, as the ground rebounds and life claws its way back, researchers descend on its flanks, searching for clues about our planet's past and warnings about the future. But what have we truly learned from this mountain's violence? What mysteries lurk in the shattered remnants of forests and the echoing, ash-choked canyons? The answers, it turns out, may change far more than we expect. Join us as we peel back 45 years of research, controversy, and awe at Mount St. Helens and the stunning discoveries scientists continue to unravel. After all, in the heart of devastation, could the world's next revolution in Earth science be quietly taking root? If you're fascinated by the untold stories of our planet and want deeper dives into nature's greatest enigmas, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more. Let's step into the shadow of the volcano and uncover what lies beneath. Ground Zero, the eruption that changed everything. May 18th, 1980, the world witnessed what would become one of the most documented and studied volcanic eruptions in history. In a brief morning interval, Mount St. Helens went from a serene, snow-capped summit to the epicenter of devastation, a stratovolcano that would redefine our perception of geological power in North America. The eruption was no ordinary outburst. Preceded by months of ominous tremors, a bulging north flank warned of something unnatural building within. When it finally gave way, the trigger was instantaneous. A colossal debris avalanche, the largest in recorded history at that time, hurtled down the mountainside, traveling at remarkable speed. The pressure release spawned a lateral blast that shredded forests for miles and killed virtually everything in its path. Ash shot up to 80,000 feet into the atmosphere, darkening skies over 11 states, dusting cars as far as Oklahoma, and disrupting life across a continent. But the devastation above ground was only half the story. What interested scientists most was how the Earth itself had shifted. Valleys buried, rivers rerouted, and entire ecosystems reset. The blast zone became an open wound where layers of Earth's crust were upended and exposed. In effect, Mount St. Helens peeled back the surface of the Pacific Northwest, bearing its geological secrets to the world. With highways impassable and towns swamped by mud flows, researchers moved in as soon as it was safe, equipped with geophones, sample kits, and new questions. They charted the limits of destruction, measured the chemistry of the air, and tracked every sign of volcanic change. For the first time, science had a real-time, panoramic look at the anatomy of a young, temperamental volcano in the heart of the lower 48 states. But this was just the beginning. Beneath the chaos, what clues waited to be found in the ash and shattered stone? Could this living laboratory teach us more than fear? From ashes to insights, the rebirth of a landscape. In the immediate aftermath, many experts believed the destruction would last generations. The blast had erased everything: mature forests, entire animal populations, even the rich soil that once carpeted the slopes. The landscape was a moonscape of mud, salts, and twisted snags. And yet, as months turned into years, something remarkable occurred, a slow but relentless return of life. Here, the seeds of some of the world's most important ecological research were sown. The mountain became a proving ground for theories about ecological succession, rebirth, and resilience. Scientists from Mount St. Helens Science and Learning Center at Coldwater began meticulous surveys, counting every thread of green that pushed through sterile pumice, cataloging the insects, rodents, and birds that returned. It wasn't just plants that reclaimed the land. Small mammals, burrowing beneath the ash, started to appear around the craters, spreading seeds and forming colonies. Spiders, carried on the wind, landed and established new territories. Salamanders and frogs, amphibians sensitive to change, reappeared sooner than many thought possible, hinting at how life can persist under extreme adversity. Perhaps most astonishing were the first reports from the mid-1980s onward. Prairie lupines blooming in carpets where no other plant yet grew, their roots stabilizing ash and laying the foundation for more complex food webs. Young willows and alders, both native and invasive, pushed their roots into the nutrient-poor soil, breaking down volcanic debris and making way for fellow pioneers. How had these plants and animals arrived with such speed? Debris channels, fallen logs, and the wind-swept plains fashioned by the blast acted both as obstacles and as bridges, a practical demonstration of how disturbance can, at times, speed the process of renewal. Scientists began to see the blast zone not as a graveyard, but as a living chronicle of how life persists in the face of annihilation. Over 4 decades, as new tree lines formed and streams carved fresh canyons, Mount St. Helens taught the world that catastrophic change is not always an end, but often a violent, unexpected beginning. Could similar mechanisms be at work in other disaster zones? And might these lessons of resilience inform how we shape our own societies? The lab beneath the volcano. Scientific discoveries in the blast zone. The lands surrounding Mount St. Helens have become the most intensively studied volcanic terrain in North America. The region draws geologists, ecologists, and biologists, and their research has shaped scientific thinking far beyond the Pacific Northwest. By the 1990s, Spirit Lake, swept away, but then recreated by the eruption, became a focus of scientific scrutiny. Its new form, filled with floating logs and low in oxygen, was a natural experiment in recovery. Scientists observed bacteria thriving in these challenging conditions, setting the stage for the return of more complex life and demonstrating how resilience often begins at the microscopic level. In these waters and soils, researchers measured the slow cycling of nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, tracing their journey from ash to mosses, insects, and eventually, mammals. Mount St. Helens became a textbook example for how entire food chains can rebuild from the ground up, revealing the delicate choreography behind nature's return. Geologists were equally fascinated. The fresh volcanic deposits, laid out layer upon layer, offered a rare window into eruption dynamics. Some eruptions spewed little more than gravel. Other blasts, occurring close in time, shot immense clouds of ash into the stratosphere. The lesson was clear. Even among the most active volcanoes in the continental US, eruption styles can change shockingly fast, leaving scientists to ponder what controls such variability. Emerging technology gave researchers a window into the mountain's inner workings. Ground-penetrating radar and seismic arrays mapped underworld voids, magma reservoirs, and new faults exposed by the eruption. Computer models, once theoretical, could now be calibrated using real-time data. The study of Mount St. Helens has since helped redefine our understanding of volcanic processes across the Cascades and beyond. Every summer brings new projects, like the 2025 survey at 50 more bird sites, using camera traps across all 117 locations. This expansion continues research that began in the eruption's wake and remains a staple of ecological study today. The accumulated data tell a vivid story: raptors nesting on burned snags, songbirds returning to regrown meadows, and unexpected animal relationships forged in a newly wild land. The Mount St. Helens Science and Learning Center, open for extended days in 2025, stands as both a field station and a symbol of curiosity-fueled resilience. Yet for all the progress, the deeper layers of the volcano still whisper. What other secrets might lie in the shadows and veins of this young, volatile mountain? Signals from the deep, monitoring an unpredictable giant. For 45 years, the United States Geological Survey and partner agencies have maintained a vigilant watch on Mount St. Helens. While the 1980 eruption is seared into public memory, the volcano has been far from quiet since. Between then and now, small eruptions and persistent seismic activity have maintained its reputation as the most active volcano in the lower 48. Mount St. Helens is notable not just for its explosive history, but for nearly continuous signs of activity. Eruptions come in many forms, from low-level emissions of ash and steam to periods when new lava domes slowly fill and reshape the crater. Modern scientists monitor the volcano's every move. Seismometers sense tremors, GPS instruments track swelling ground, and gas sensors catch subtle volcanic exhalations. The real-time data forms a living dialogue between mountain and human observer. And yet, even with such tools, surprises remain. The mountain has still produced unexpected minor eruptions and volcanic events, a reminder that for all our technological advances, the processes beneath Mount St. Helens remain deeply complex. Lava domes rebuild with unpredictable timing, and tectonic pressures wax and wane, sometimes with warning, sometimes without. This unpredictability keeps volcanologists returning. No other volcano in the continental United States offers such a continuously evolving test site for studying volcanic activity. Every new event at Mount St. Helens sharpens our ability to interpret signals and refine our approaches to public safety and preparedness elsewhere around the world. But as danger persists, so too does opportunity. Could mastering Mount St. Helens' signals make the difference between disaster and survival? Or will its next major eruption catch us only half prepared? Life in the ash, ecological experiments, and unexpected adaptations. Across the landscape transformed by the 1980 eruption, a remarkable story is being written, a story of biological recovery that continues to shape ecological science worldwide. What began as a study of destruction is now regarded as one of the planet's most informative experiments in natural renewal. Using new monitoring methods, like camera traps at all 117 bird sites in 2025 and stringent population studies, scientists have tracked the choreography of recovery in detail. Camera images reveal deer browsing among stumps, black bears returning, and woodpeckers thriving amidst a mosaic of new habitats. Bird populations devastated by the eruption are meticulously monitored and cataloged. The resurgence of songbirds, raptors, and woodpeckers provides not just a symbol of hope, but a growing data set rich with insight into ecological succession. Insects and spiders played crucial roles as early colonizers, arriving quickly and shaping conditions for subsequent arrivals. Amphibians, often sensitive to pollution and disturbance, are thriving in new lakes and ponds created by the reconfigured landscape. Aquatic invertebrates have also adapted to novel conditions, signaling the birth of new freshwater ecosystems. Altered river courses, curved and redirected by the eruption and subsequent mud flows, now support an array of new habitats rarely seen elsewhere. The broader significance of this recovery is being explored through comparison with other volcanic and disturbed landscapes. Patterns at Mount St. Helens are referenced in studies around the world and provide a kind of playbook for nature's resilience. Catastrophe, it turns out, can catalyze evolutionary change and bold experiments in adaptation. Some species have adopted new behaviors or adjusted their diets in response to the altered ecosystem, providing rare insight into evolution in action. Yet the story remains complex. Invasive species, exploiting open ground, challenge native pioneers. Some meadows are giving way to scrubland, and the delicate balance between old and new is still being tested. Human presence itself, through research and recreation, brings both benefits and challenges. Each discovery comes with new uncertainties. If disturbance breeds resilience, how much further can the balance be pushed? Are these adaptations nature's own insurance policy, or harbingers of broader environmental shifts? 45 years later, answers can be found in every surviving tree, every animal track, and every patch of recovering landscape. Shifting ground, human endeavor, risk, and unfinished business. The insights gained at Mount St. Helens owe much to an enormous human effort, bold in scope, and at times, vulnerable to outside pressures. The Mount St. Helens Science and Learning Center stands as both beacon and warning, representing decades of hard-won advancement, but also the growing threat of complacency and loss. Education and stewardship programs, and the infrastructure that keeps visitors and researchers safe all trace their beginnings to the years after the eruption. Recently, however, federal funding cuts threaten these efforts. These reductions put at risk the very projects that make ongoing research and public safety possible. From long-term ecological surveys to visitor education, the consequences of neglect are clear. Fewer scientific studies can mean fewer early warnings. Gaps in stewardship may lead to increasing problems with invasive species and habitat degradation, potentially unraveling decades of recovery. The flow of information, vital for both the public and policymakers, could slow or even halt. The Science and Learning Center itself serves to remind visitors that Mount St. Helens is not just a natural laboratory, but a living memory of both destruction and recovery. Here, educators and rangers interpret the signs, the tracks of wildlife returning, the gases emerging from new vents, or the silence left when old forests fail to recover. Efforts to expand research, such as the 2025 expansion of bird monitoring and the deployment of new wildlife cameras, are more than just data collection. They represent a sustained commitment to curiosity and stewardship. They show that knowledge must be actively maintained and protected if we are to glean the volcano's lessons for the future. The long memory of stone, lessons for a shifting world. Mount St. Helens continues to evolve, not just as a geological feature, but as an icon and a source of practical wisdom. The discoveries earned from its slopes since 1980 have transformed our understanding of volcanoes, recovery, and risk management. Researchers now look to Mount St. Helens as a template. Its shifting terrain has parallels with other sudden disasters. Wildfires, floods, and pandemics all bring similar challenges of recovery and resilience. The lessons of Mount St. Helens now appear in textbooks, policy frameworks, and international disaster planning. The mountain's story is a powerful reminder that catastrophe, despite the pain it brings, can open windows into the deepest workings of our planet. Hidden beneath the ash and broken forests are blueprints for resilience, a call to stewardship, vigilance, and preparedness as we face a world that changes ever more rapidly. And the learning is far from over. Yearly, new mysteries surface, unexpected blooms on barren ridges, seismic activity in novel patterns, hints that the volcano's inner pressures are changing again. The process of discovery never stops, carving fresh paths across the landscape of our knowledge. How much longer can we afford to ignore the lessons, the warnings, and the possibilities quietly assembling beneath Mount St. Helens' restlessly shifting earth? Final reflections beneath the summit. As the anniversary of the Great Eruption passes, the debate over Mount St. Helens' future grows more urgent. With funding uncertain and programs vulnerable, scientists, educators, and the public face a hard truth. The mountain story is unfinished. The insights of the last 45 years, painstakingly gathered from ground zero and through tireless observation, have transformed Mount St. Helens from a symbol of tragedy to a source of ongoing inspiration. But unless education, stewardship, and diligent research are sustained, the delicate cycle of renewal that now defines the area could unravel. Even as researchers prepare for another summer of surveys, counting birds, tracking mammals, measuring volcanic gases in search of early warning signs, the central question grows ever more acute. What secrets does the mountain still guard in its shifting, ash-laden core? Have we learned enough to anticipate its next awakening? Or will Mount St. Helens, the most active volcano in the lower 48 states, remind us once more how little we truly know of the earth beneath our feet? If you found this journey through Eruption and Rebirth compelling, let us know in the comments. Share any memories, questions, or theories you have about Mount St. Helens' many secrets, and don't forget to subscribe and like for more true stories and deep dives into nature's mysteries. Thank you for joining us, and remember, keep questioning, keep learning, and always look for what lies just beneath the surface.